The vast emptiness of space suddenly came alive with a shimmering light. A massive spaceship, sleek and silver, emerged from what looked like a tear in the fabric of reality. This was the flagship of the Zorgan fleet, an alien race known across the galaxy for their advanced technology and warrior culture. Commander Zax stood on the bridge, his four eyes fixed on the blue and green planet that filled the view screen. Earth, as the natives called it, looked small and insignificant to him. Zax's lips curled into what passed for a smile among his species. "Scan the planet," he ordered, his voice a low growl that echoed through the command center. His subordinates, a mix of blue-skinned humanoids with varying numbers of limbs, quickly went to work. Holographic displays flickered to life around them, showing data about Earth's composition, atmosphere, and inhabitants. "Sir," one of the junior officers reported, "we're detecting billions of life forms. The dominant species appears to be bictal, carbon-based organisms." Zax nodded, unsurprised. "What about their technology level?" Another officer spoke up, her voice tinged with what sounded like amusement. "Primitive, Commander. They've barely left their own planet. Their most advanced weapons wouldn't even scratch our shields." A ripple of laughter spread through the bridge. The Zorgans had conquered hundreds of worlds, and Earth looked like it would be their easiest victory yet. "Prepare the landing parties," Zax commanded. "We'll start with a small-scale invasion to test their defenses. Not that I expect much resistance." As the Zorgan ship descended into Earth's upper atmosphere, alarms began blaring on military bases around the world. In the Pentagon, General Sarah Thompson stared at the satellite feeds with a mix of awe and terror. "My God," she whispered, "it's really happening." For years, conspiracy theorists and sci-fi enthusiasts had talked about the possibility of alien contact. Now, faced with the reality, even the most prepared military minds felt a chill run down their spines. "Ma'am," a young lieutenant called out, "the alien ship is deploying smaller craft. They seem to be heading for multiple locations across the globe." General Thompson's jaw clenched. "Alert all commands. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." As panic spread across the globe, the first Zorgan shuttles breached Earth's lower atmosphere. Inside one of these craft, Squad Leader Crix briefed his troops. "Remember," he said, his voice filled with disdain, "these humans are weak. Their bodies are fragile, and their weapons are laughable. This is nothing more than a glorified training exercise." The Zorgan soldiers nodded, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. They had heard stories of how easy it was to conquer primitive worlds, and each of them dreamed of the glory they would gain from this invasion. As the shuttle doors opened, Crix took his first breath of Earth's air. Immediately, he felt a strange sensation in his lungs. It was almost pleasant. He shook off the feeling, focusing on the task at hand. The Zorgans poured out of their ships, expecting to find terrified humans running in fear. Instead, they were met with a surprising level of resistance. In cities across the world, local military forces and even civilian volunteers fought back with everything they had. In New York, a Zorgan squad found itself pinned down by police officers and armed citizens. In Beijing, the alien invaders were shocked to discover that human firearms, while primitive, could still be deadly when used en masse. Crix watched in disbelief as one of his soldiers fell, brought down by what looked like a simple projectile weapon. "Impossible," he muttered. As the day wore on, reports flooded in from Zorgan forces around the planet. The humans were not surrendering as expected. They were fighting back, and in some cases, they were even winning. Back on the mothership, Commander Zax received the news with growing anger and confusion. This was not how invasions were supposed to go. These humans, with their primitive technology and fragile bodies, should have been easy prey. As night fell on the first day of the invasion, both sides retreated to regroup and reassess. The Zorgans, for the first time in centuries, found themselves facing an enemy that refused to be easily conquered. And on Earth, Amid the chaos and destruction, a spark of hope began to grow. Humanity had faced its first extraterrestrial threat and survived. The war was far from over, but one thing was clear: Earth would not fall without a fight. As the sun rose on the second day of the invasion, both humans and Zorgans prepared for the battles ahead. The initial shock had worn off, and now the true test of strength would begin. Commander Zax paced the bridge of his ship, his 4 eyes narrowed in frustration. "How is this possible?" he growled. "These humans should have fallen by now." His second in command, a tall Zorgan named Vex, approached cautiously. "Sir, we've analyzed the data from yesterday's encounters. It seems we underestimated the humans." Zax whirled around, his face contorted with anger. "Explain." Vex brought up a holographic display. "While their technology is indeed primitive, the humans show remarkable adaptability and resilience. They're using their knowledge of their own planet to their advantage." On the screen, images flashed of human soldiers using the terrain to ambush Zorgan troops, of civilians turning everyday objects into makeshift weapons. Furthermore, Vex continued, "Our troops are reporting some unexpected physical effects from prolonged exposure to Earth's atmosphere." Meanwhile, on the ground, humanity was rallying its forces. In a bunker beneath Washington, D.C., General Thompson addressed a room full of world leaders via video conference. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice steady despite the dark circles under her eyes, "we've survived the first wave, but this is just the beginning." The leaders listened intently as Thompson laid out their strategy. "We've observed that the aliens seem to be struggling with our atmosphere. We need to use this to our advantage." In labs across the globe, scientists worked tirelessly to understand this weakness. Dr. Amit Patel, a climatologist in India, made a breakthrough discovery. "It's the oxygen," he exclaimed to his team. "Earth's atmosphere has a much higher oxygen content than what these aliens are used to. It's like they're getting drunk on our air." This information spread quickly among Earth's defenders. In London, a group of Royal Air Force pilots prepared for a daring mission. Squadron leader Emma Richards briefed her team. "Remember, the higher we can force them to fly, the more our air will affect them. Use the clouds for cover, and don't be afraid to lead them on a chase." As battles raged across the planet, the Zorgans found themselves facing an increasingly difficult situation. Their advanced weapons malfunctioned in Earth's humid environments. Their soldiers became disoriented in oxygen-rich areas. In Brazil, a Zorgan squad pursued a group of human resistance fighters into the Amazon rainforest. As they went deeper into the lush, oxygen-producing jungle, the aliens began to feel strange. I can't think straight," one Zorgan soldier slurred, his movements becoming clumsy. The squad leader, Grix, tried to call for backup, but his communication device sparked and died in the damp air. "Fall back," he ordered, but it was too late. From the trees, a hail of arrows and darts rained down. The Zorgans, their reflexes slowed by the oxygen-rich air, couldn't react in time. Within minutes, the entire squad was incapacitated. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In the mountains of Nepal, Zorgan troops found themselves outmaneuvered by human soldiers accustomed to the thin air. In the deserts of Australia, the aliens' temperature regulation systems failed in the extreme heat. Back on the mothership, Commander Zax received increasingly desperate reports from his ground forces. "Sir," Vex said, his voice grave, "we're losing more troops to environmental factors than to human weapons. Our biology simply isn't adapted to this planet's conditions." Zax slammed his fist on the control panel. "Impossible. We are the Zorgans. We have conquered hundreds of worlds." But the evidence was undeniable. Earth, which had seemed so ripe for conquest, was proving to be a deadly trap for the invaders. As the second day of the invasion drew to a close, a new feeling began to spread among the human defenders: hope. They had discovered a crucial weakness in their seemingly invincible enemy. In the Pentagon, General Thompson, allowed herself a small smile as she reviewed the day's reports. "We're not out of this yet," she told her staff, "but we've got them on the back foot. Earth itself is fighting back." As night fell, both sides prepared for what would surely be a pivotal third day. The Zorgans, for the first time, faced the possibility of defeat, and humanity, against all odds, dared to dream of victory. The third day of the invasion dawned with a sense of tension on both sides. Humans were cautiously optimistic, while the Zorgans struggled to adapt their strategies. On the Zorgan mothership, Commander Zax called an emergency meeting with his top officers. His usual confidence was replaced by a grim determination. "We cannot let a primitive planet defeat us," Zax growled. "We must find a way to overcome these atmospheric challenges." Vex, his second-in-command, stepped forward with a holographic display. "Sir, our scientists have developed a filtration system for our troops. It should help them cope with Earth's oxygen levels." Zax nodded. "Deploy them immediately, and prepare our weather control technology. If we can't adapt to this planet's atmosphere, we'll change it to suit us." As the Zorgans prepared their counterattack, Earth's defenders were busy with plans of their own. In a secret facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Emily Chen, a brilliant atmospheric scientist, presented her findings to a group of military leaders and fellow scientists. "We've analyzed the Zorgan physiology," she explained, pointing to a complex diagram. "Their respiratory systems are highly sensitive to changes in air composition. If we can increase the oxygen levels in targeted areas, we can effectively incapacitate them." General Thompson, who had flown in for this crucial meeting, leaned forward. "How quickly can we implement this?" Dr. Chen smiled. "We've already started. We're using a network of modified air purifiers and oxygen generators. Within hours, we can create oxygen bubbles in key battlegrounds." As both sides put their plans into action, the conflict entered a new phase. In cities around the world, Zorgan troops advanced with their new filtration systems, only to find themselves stumbling into invisible traps of super-oxygenated air. In downtown Tokyo, a squad of Zorgan soldiers approached the barricaded headquarters of the Japanese Self-Defense Forces. They moved with renewed confidence, their new equipment humming softly. Suddenly, the lead soldier stumbled. "Something's wrong," he slurred, his movements becoming erratic. The others soon followed, their coordination failing as they were overwhelmed by the invisible oxygen-rich bubble surrounding the building. From their fortified positions, the human defenders watched in amazement as the fearsome alien warriors collapsed, helpless. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In the streets of Rio de Janeiro, on the plains of Kenya, in the suburbs of Sydney. Everywhere the Zorgans attacked, they found themselves facing not just human resistance, but the very air itself. But the aliens were not defeated yet. High in the atmosphere, massive Zorgan ships began to deploy their weather control technology. Dark clouds formed, and strange energy patterns crackled across the sky. At NASA's mission control, alarms blared as scientists detected the atmospheric disturbances. "They're trying to alter our atmosphere on a global scale," one researcher shouted. The news spread quickly. Humanity faced a new threat, one that endangered not just their military forces, but every living thing on the planet. In response, governments around the world activated a plan that had been deemed too risky just days before. Rockets launched from sites across the globe, carrying payloads designed to counteract the Zorgan weather control. As tensions reached a fever pitch, an unexpected player entered the fray. In the depths of the Amazon rainforest, a group of indigenous shamans gathered. They had watched the skies change and felt the disturbance in the natural order. Led by Elder Rayoni, they began an ancient ritual, calling upon the spirit of the earth itself to reject the alien influence. As they chanted and danced, something extraordinary happened. The trees around them seemed to pulse with energy. Animals emerged from hiding, adding their calls to the shaman's voices. A wave of green energy spread outward, visible even from space. On the Zorgan mothership, alarms blared. "Commander, Vex called out, his voice filled with disbelief. Our weather control systems, they're failing. Zax stared at the view screen, watching as the unnatural storm patterns dissipated. In their place, a shimmering green aura enveloped the planet. What is this? He demanded. What are these humans doing? Back on Earth, people watched in awe as the sky cleared. The Zorgon ships, caught in the wave of Earth's energy, began to malfunction and retreat to higher orbits. In the Pentagon War Room, General Thompson received reports from around the world. Zorgon forces were in disarray, their technology failing, their troops incapacitated. For the first time since the invasion began, she allowed herself a true smile. Send word to all commands, she ordered. Push forward. The tide has turned. As the third day of the invasion came to a close, humanity stood united and reinvigorated. They had discovered not just the aliens' weakness, but their own strength, a strength born from their connection to their home planet. The war was far from over, but in this moment, Earth had shown that it would not fall easily. The Zorgons, who had thought humans weak, were learning a harsh lesson about underestimating their opponents and the power of the world they called home. As the fourth day of the invasion dawned, a new energy pulsed through the human resistance. The events of the previous day had shown that the Zorgons were not invincible, and Earth itself seemed to be fighting alongside its inhabitants. In the Pentagon, General Thompson stood before a group of international military leaders. Her face was tired but determined. "We've been on the defensive long enough," she declared. "It's time to take the fight to them." Meanwhile, aboard the Zorgon mothership, Commander Zax faced a crisis. His officers crowded around him, their voices a mix of fear and anger. "Our ground forces are in disarray," one reported. "The humans have found ways to weaponize their atmosphere against us." Another chimed in. "And that strange energy from the planet, it's interfering with our systems. We've lost contact with 3 battalions in the last hour alone." Zax's 4 eyes narrowed. He had never faced such a challenge in all his years of conquest. "Prepare the world breaker," he growled. "If we can't conquer this planet, we'll destroy it." Back on Earth, Dr. Emily Chen rushed into the war room, her tablet clutched tightly in her hand. "General, we've detected a massive energy buildup in the Zorgon fleet. They're preparing something big." Thompson's face hardened. "They're getting desperate. That means it's time for us to strike." Across the globe, humanity launched its counterattack. In the skies over North America, squadrons of fighters took off, their engines roaring. But these weren't ordinary planes. They carried specially designed atmospheric generators, capable of creating localized pockets of super-oxygenated air. Squadron leader Emma Richards led the charge. "Remember your training," she told her pilots. "Herd them into the oxygen pockets. Let Earth's air do the work for us." The battle that unfolded was unlike anything seen before in Earth's skies. Human fighters darted and weaved, leading the larger Zorgon ships into invisible traps. When the aliens hit the pockets of enriched air, their ships began to malfunction, their pilots becoming disoriented. On the ground, a different kind of battle was taking place. In the heart of the Amazon, Elder Raoni and his fellow shamans continued their rituals, calling upon the spirit of the earth. The green energy that had repelled the Zorgon weather control now spread further, empowering the planet's defenders. In Africa, Maasai warriors found their spears glowing with an otherworldly light, capable of piercing alien armor. In Japan, ancient Shinto shrines pulsed with power, creating barriers that Zorgon weapons couldn't penetrate. Dr. Chen, monitoring these events, could hardly believe her eyes. "It's as if the planet is activating some kind of immune system against the invasion," she murmured in awe. But the Zorgons weren't defeated yet. High above the Earth, their massive world-breaker weapon began to power up. Its purpose was clear: to crack the planet open like an egg. Zax watched with grim satisfaction as the weapon charged. "Let's see how well they fight when their precious atmosphere is stripped away," he snarled. However, the humans had one more trick up their sleeve. In secret facilities around the world, scientists had been working on reverse engineering Zorgon technology from crashed ships. Now, they unveiled their creation. At Cape Canaveral, a massive rocket stood ready. But this was no ordinary rocket. It carried humanity's first faster-than-light engine, cobbled together from alien tech and human ingenuity. "We're only going to get one shot at this," General Thompson said, her finger hovering over the launch button. "May God be with them." The rocket roared to life, carrying a small but elite team of astronauts and soldiers. Their mission: to board the Zorgon mothership and disable the Worldbreaker from within. As the rocket vanished in a flash of light, heading for the Zorgon fleet, battles continued to rage across the Earth. Humanity fought with everything they had, from high-tech weapons to sticks and stones empowered by the planet's mysterious energy. In New Delhi, a group of children used slingshots to lob seed pods at Zorgon soldiers. To everyone's surprise, the seeds sprouted on contact, quickly entangling the aliens in rapidly growing vines. In Antarctica, scientists used the continent's unique conditions to create zones of extreme cold, freezing Zorgon technology in its tracks. Every environment on Earth, once a challenge for human survival, now became a weapon in humanity's arsenal. Deserts, oceans, mountains, each played its part in repelling the invaders. As the fourth day of invasion neared its end, the fate of both humanity and the Zorgons hung in the balance. The Worldbreaker loomed as a deadly threat, while Earth's newfound planetary defense and humanity's daring space mission offered a glimmer of hope. In this moment, it became clear that the war would be decided not by technology alone, but by the spirit and resilience of those fighting, and the unexpected power of the world they called home. As the fifth day of the invasion dawned, all eyes turned to the sky. The fate of Earth now rested in the hands of a small team of brave humans aboard a hastily constructed spaceship racing towards the Zorgon mothership. Captain Maria Hernandez gripped the controls of the ship, her eyes fixed on the looming alien vessel. "All systems check," she called out to her crew. "Prepare for approach." Behind her, a mix of soldiers and scientists readied themselves for what could be humanity's last stand. Among them was Dr. Jack Morrison, the engineer who had reverse-engineered the Zorgon technology. "Remember," Jack said, his voice tense, "we need to get to the core of their Worldbreaker weapon. It should be near the center of the ship." As they neared the mothership, alarms blared on the Zorgon bridge. Commander Zax's eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible. How did they acquire faster-than-light technology? "Sir," Vex reported, "the human ship is on an intercept course. Their technology, it's similar to ours." Zax snarled, "Destroy them. We cannot let them interfere with the Worldbreaker." The space around the mothership erupted in chaos. Zorgon fighters poured out to intercept the human vessel, their weapons blazing. But Captain Hernandez was ready. "Activate the atmospheric shields," she ordered. A shimmering bubble formed around the human ship, carrying with it a concentrated pocket of Earth's atmosphere. As the Zorgon fighters approached, their systems began to malfunction, just as they had in the skies over Earth. "It's working," Jack exclaimed. "The high oxygen content is disrupting their tech, just like on the ground." Taking advantage of the confusion, Hernandez piloted their ship towards a docking bay. With a screech of metal on metal, they crash-landed inside the Zorgon mothership. "Go! Go, go!" shouted Lieutenant Sarah Chen as the team disembarked, their specially designed suits protecting them from the alien atmosphere. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the battle raged on. The mysterious green energy continued to spread, empowering humans and the environment in unexpected ways. In the Sahara Desert, Tuareg nomads found they could command the sands themselves, creating blinding storms that overwhelmed Zorgon ground forces. Off the coast of Australia, marine biologists watched in awe as whales and dolphins coordinated attacks on alien sea vessels, their songs somehow interfering with Zorgon sonar. In orbit, the Worldbreaker weapon continued to power up. Its ominous glow was visible even from the ground, a constant reminder of the stakes of this conflict. General Thompson paced nervously in the Pentagon war room. Any word from the space team? She asked for what felt like the 100th time. Not yet, Mom, came the tense reply. But we're detecting massive energy fluctuations from the mothership. Something big is happening up there. Inside the Zorgan ship, Captain Hernandez's team fought their way through twisting corridors. The ship's interior was a maze of alien technology, pulsing with an eerie light. This way, Jack called out, consulting a hastily drawn map based on their scans. The World Breaker's core should be just ahead. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a squad of Zorgan soldiers. For a moment, both sides froze in surprise. Then Lieutenant Chen had an idea. She quickly adjusted her suit's atmospheric controls and released a burst of concentrated oxygen. The effect was immediate. The Zorgan soldiers began to sway, their movements becoming uncoordinated. Some collapsed entirely, overcome by the sudden change in air composition. Quick thinking, Chen, Hernandez said as they rushed past the incapacitated aliens. Finally, they'd reached the core of the World Breaker. It was a massive chamber, dominated by a pulsing orb of energy that seemed to bend the light around it. That's it, Jack breathed. The power source for their planet killer. But before they could approach, a voice rang out. I must admit, I'm impressed. Commander Zack stepped out of the shadows, flanked by his elite guards. You humans have proven more resourceful than we anticipated. Hernandez stepped forward, her weapon raised. It's over, Zax. We won't let you destroy our world. Zax's alien features twisted into what might have been a smile. Oh, but it's not over. It's only just begun. With a gesture, he activated a force field, separating himself and the World Breaker core from the human team. You see, even if you somehow manage to stop this weapon, our fleet stands ready. Earth will fall, one way or another. As tension mounted in the World Breaker chamber, the fate of Earth hung in the balance. The human team faced their greatest challenge yet, while on the planet below, humanity continued to fight with everything they had. The war had reached its critical moment. In the next few hours, the future of both species would be decided. Amid the stars, and on a life-giving planet they fought to control. In the heart of the Zorgan mothership, Captain Hernandez and her team faced off against Commander Zax. The pulsing core of the World Breaker loomed behind the force field, a constant reminder of the threat to Earth. You've lost, Zax, Hernandez said, her voice steady despite the dire situation. Even if you destroy Earth, you've shown the galaxy that the Zorgans aren't invincible. Zax's alien features contorted in rage. Foolish human. We are the Zorgans. We do not lose. As tensions rose in the chamber, Dr. Jack Morrison whispered to Hernandez, Captain, I have an idea. But it's risky. While they conferred, Lieutenant Chen kept her eyes on the Zorgans, her finger ready on the trigger of her weapon. Back on Earth, the battle had reached a fever pitch. The green energy that had empowered humanity now covered the entire planet in a soft, pulsating glow. In the war room, General Thompson received an urgent message. Ma'am, a young officer reported, you need to see this. The main screen lit up with images from around the world. In the Amazon, trees were uprooting themselves, using their branches to swat Zorgan ships from the sky. In the Himalayas, the mountains themselves seemed to shift, creating landslides that buried alien ground forces. It's like the whole planet is fighting back, someone whispered in awe. Thompson's eyes narrowed. Get me Elder Rayoni. Now, in the heart of the Amazon, Elder Rayoni and his fellow shamans continued their ancient ritual. When Thompson's call came through, the old man's eyes twinkled with ancient wisdom. The earth has awakened, Rayoni said simply. She will not let her children fall. As they spoke, a plan began to form. If they could somehow channel this planetary energy to the human team on the mothership, they might have a chance. In space, unaware of these developments, Captain Hernandez nodded to Dr. Morrison. "Do it," she said. Jack pulled out a small device he'd been working on. "This should disrupt the force field," he explained. "But it'll also flood this chamber with our atmosphere." "Everyone, masks on," Hernandez ordered. With a deep breath, Jack activated the device. A high-pitched whine filled the air, and suddenly the force field flickered and died. Zax roared in anger, but his cry turned to a choke as Earth's oxygen-rich atmosphere flooded the chamber. The Zorgan soldiers stumbled, their movements becoming erratic. "Now," Hernandez shouted. Her team sprang into action. Chen and the other soldiers engaged the disoriented Zorgans, while Hernandez and Jack made a dash for the Worldbreaker's core. Zax, fighting against the effects of the oxygen, lunged at them. "You will not stop us," he snarled. But as his claws reached for Hernandez, something extraordinary happened. A tendril of green energy, similar to what they'd seen on Earth, snaked through the air and wrapped around Zax's arm. Everyone froze, staring in disbelief. More tendrils appeared, filling the chamber with a soft, earthly glow. On the bridge of the mothership, Vex watched in horror as the green energy spread throughout the ship. It's like the planet is here," he gasped. Back in the Worldbreaker chamber, Hernandez felt a warm, comforting presence. Somehow, impossibly, she could sense the life force of Earth itself, reaching out across space to aid its defenders. Zax struggled against the green tendrils, his eyes wide with fear for the first time. "What is this sorcery?" he demanded. "It's not sorcery," Jack said in awe. "It's life. Earth's life." Hernandez stepped forward, feeling emboldened by the planet's energy. "This is our home, Zax, and it's asking you to leave." As if in response, the green energy pulsed brightly. The Zorgans cried out, overwhelmed by the life force of an entire living planet. Hernandez turned to Jack. "Can we use this energy to shut down the Worldbreaker?" Jack nodded, his eyes shining with excitement. "I think the planet wants us to." Together, guided by the green tendrils, they approached the Worldbreaker's core. As they touched it, they felt a surge of power unlike anything they'd ever experienced. The core began to change, its ominous red glow fading, replaced by the soft green of Earth's energy. Alarms blared throughout the mothership as the Worldbreaker powered down. Zax, still held by the tendrils, watched in disbelief as his ultimate weapon was neutralized. "Impossible," he whispered. Hernandez turned to face him, her eyes glowing slightly green. "This is your last chance, Zax. Leave our world in peace, or face the consequences." As the fate of both species hung in the balance, the green energy pulsed once more, as if Earth itself was awaiting the Zorgan commander's decision. The war had reached its turning point, and the next few moments would determine the future of not just humanity, but of all life on Earth. The Worldbreaker chamber hummed with Earth's green energy. Commander Zax, still held by the glowing tendrils, stared at Captain Hernandez with a mix of fear and awe. "How?" he croaked, his voice weak from the oxygen-rich air. "How is this possible?" Hernandez stepped forward, her eyes shimmering with the planet's power. "We didn't just defend our world, Zax. Our world defended us." As if to emphasize her point, the green energy pulsed, sending a wave of life force through the ship. Zorgan systems flickered and died, while the human team felt invigorated. Dr. Jack Morrison worked frantically at a console, his fingers flying over alien controls. "Captain," he called out, "I'm broadcasting what's happening here to every Zorgan ship in the fleet." On screens throughout the alien armada, Zorgan soldiers watched in disbelief as their supreme commander was held captive by Earth's energy. They saw the Worldbreaker, their ultimate weapon, transformed into a beacon of green light. Back on Earth, the scene was broadcast globally. Cheers erupted from every corner of the planet as humanity realized the tide had turned. In the Amazon, Elder Roney smiled, his weathered face peaceful. "The Earth has spoken," he said simply. General Thompson, watching from the Pentagon, allowed herself a moment of hope. "Keep pushing," she ordered her forces. Victory is within our grasp. In the World Breaker chamber, Hernandez faced Zax. It's over, she said firmly. Call off your forces, leave our solar system, and never return. Zax's alien features contorted as he struggled with the decision. Centuries of Zorgan supremacy warred with the undeniable reality before him. Finally, he slumped in defeat. I surrender, he whispered. The words echoed through the ship's communication systems, reaching every Zorgan in the fleet. A collective gasp went up from the alien forces. Vex on the bridge couldn't believe his ears. But as he looked at the screens showing Earth's power reaching into space, he knew it was true. All forces, he commanded, his voice shaking. Stand down. Prepare for retreat. Across the Earth, Zorgan soldiers dropped their weapons. Their ships, those that could still fly, began to ascend, breaking away from the battles they'd been locked in moments before. As the Zorgan fleet retreated, Earth's green energy followed them to the edge of the solar system, as if escorting them out. In the World Breaker chamber, the energy tendrils gently released Zax. He stumbled, then straightened, facing Hernandez and her team. You have defeated us, he said, his voice a mix of bitterness and respect. In all our conquests, we have never encountered a force like this. Jack stepped forward. It's not just about military might, he explained. Earth is alive, Zax. Every plant, every animal, every microscopic organism. They're all part of a giant, interconnected system. When you threatened that system, it fought back. Hernandez nodded. And we humans are part of that system too. We're not separate from our world. We're deeply connected to it. Understanding dawned in Zax's alien eyes. Then we have much to learn, he admitted. As the last Zorgan ships disappeared into deep space, a wave of jubilation swept across Earth. The green energy retreated, sinking back into the planet, but leaving behind a newfound awareness in every human. In the days that followed, the world began to heal. The shamans' rituals ended, but the connection they had awakened remained. People everywhere reported feeling more in tune with nature, more aware of the living world around them. Scientists studied the phenomena, amazed by the implications. It's like Earth has an immune system, Dr. Chen explained in a global broadcast, and we're part of it. World leaders, humbled by the experience, committed to better stewardship of the planet. Environmental protection became a top priority across the globe. As for the Zorgans, they retreated to the far reaches of the galaxy. But they didn't go empty-handed. They carried with them the lesson Earth had taught them, that true strength comes not from conquest, but from connection, from being part of something greater than oneself. 1 month after the invasion, Captain Hernandez stood on a hilltop, watching a beautiful sunset. The breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers, and birds sang in the distance. She took a deep breath, feeling the oxygen that had proven so pivotal in their victory. Thank you, she whispered to the living world around her. And somewhere, deep in the earth, something ancient and alive heard her gratitude and responded with a gentle pulse of green energy, a reminder that on this small blue planet, humanity would never truly be alone.